The ground is shaking, not from an earthquake, not from an explosion, from something nobody has ever prepared for. A wall of black liquid, 2 stories tall, is moving through the streets faster than a man can run. It's crushing buildings like they're made of paper. It's swallowing horses whole. And the people who survive this afternoon will spend the rest of their lives trying to explain what they saw, because nobody will believe them otherwise. This isn't fiction. This actually happened. And the truth behind why it happened is far more disturbing than the disaster itself. Boston, January 1919. The war in Europe has just ended. The city is trying to return to something resembling normal life. Along the waterfront of the North End, a massive steel tank rises above the neighborhood, holding over 2 million gallons of molasses, a sweet, thick syrup used to make rum, and more importantly at that moment in history, industrial alcohol for munitions. Children play near its base. Workers walk past it every single day without a second thought. To them, it's just part of the skyline now. Nobody in that neighborhood has any reason to fear a tank of syrup, but some of them have noticed something strange. For months, residents have heard the tank groaning. Low, deep, unsettling sounds, almost like the metal itself is trying to warn them. Some workers have even seen it leaking, thin streams of molasses trickling down its sides. Children in the neighborhood have started collecting the leaking syrup in cups, treating it like a strange, sweet game. Nobody investigates. Nobody stops production. The company that owns the tank has heard the complaints, and their solution isn't to fix the structure. It's to paint the tank brown so the leaks are harder to see. But nobody knew the worst was still coming. On the afternoon of January 15th, temperatures rise unusually fast, a strange warm spell cutting through Boston's winter cold. Inside the tank, pressure is building in ways nobody outside can see. The steel, already weakened, already groaning for months, is finally reaching its limit. At exactly 12:30 in the afternoon, without warning, the tank fails completely. Witnesses describe a sound like machine gun fire, rivets popping loose one after another in rapid succession. And then, the unimaginable. The entire structure tears open, and 2.3 million gallons of molasses explode outward into the streets of Boston. This is not a slow spill. This is a wave 25 feet high at its peak, moving at an estimated speed of 35 miles per hour, faster than most people can sprint. It hits everything in its path with the force of a tsunami. Buildings are ripped from their foundations. A steel support beam of the elevated train line is snapped in half like a twig. Horses pulling delivery carts are lifted off the ground and carried away, disappearing beneath the surface. Workers on their lunch break, children walking home from school, families going about an ordinary Wednesday, none of them have any warning before the wave reaches them. And here's what almost nobody expects. Molasses doesn't just knock people down, it traps them. As the wave slows, it thickens, becoming a suffocating, sticky mass that pins victims in place, unable to move, unable to breathe, as more liquid continues rushing toward them. What investigators discovered next shocked the entire nation. 21 people are killed that afternoon. Not by drowning in water, but by drowning in syrup, some crushed by debris, others suffocated where they were trapped, coated so completely in molasses that rescuers initially cannot tell where one victim ends and the next begins. More than 150 others are injured, some of them children who had been playing near the tank just minutes earlier. Rescue efforts begin almost immediately, but the molasses makes everything harder. Firefighters and Red Cross volunteers wade through waist-deep syrup, struggling to pull survivors free, fighting a substance that seems determined not to let go. Horses that survive the initial wave are so completely trapped in hardening molasses that many have to be shot where they stand, unable to be freed in time. For days afterward, rescue workers continue searching the wreckage, uncertain how many more victims remain buried beneath the syrup. Some bodies aren't recovered for weeks. But this wasn't the biggest mistake. As the city grieves, questions start emerging about the tank itself. Why had it never been properly tested? Why had those warning groans, heard by residents for months, been ignored? The answers, once investigators dig deeper, reveal something far worse than simple bad luck. The tank had been built quickly, rushed to meet wartime demand for industrial alcohol, and it had never been properly inspected before being filled. Nobody with engineering expertise had signed off on its safety. The company hadn't even tested it with water first, the most basic safety check for a structure meant to hold millions of gallons of liquid. When residents reported leaks and strange sounds, their concerns had been dismissed rather than investigated. This wasn't an accident caused by unpredictable nature. This was a disaster built, piece by piece, out of ignored warnings and cut corners. The court case that followed became one of the longest and most consequential civil trials in Massachusetts history, stretching on for nearly 6 years. In the end, the company was found responsible for the disaster, forced to pay damages to victims' families, an outcome that felt, to many survivors, painfully overdue. But the flood's true legacy reached far beyond the courtroom. In its aftermath, Massachusetts introduced strict new requirements for structural engineering. Calculations had to be verified. Architects and engineers had to sign off on their work, taking legal responsibility for what they built. It was one of the earliest moments in American history where industrial negligence directly reshaped public safety law, a shift that would influence construction standards for generations afterward. Locals in Boston's North End still tell stories about the flood, even today. Some claim that on particularly hot summer afternoons, the faint scent of molasses still seems to linger in the air near where the tank once stood, though scientists would tell you that's almost certainly memory playing tricks on imagination. But maybe that lingering memory is the point, because the Great Molasses Flood wasn't really about a tank of syrup. It was about every small warning sign that gets dismissed because acknowledging it feels inconvenient. The groaning metal nobody investigated. The leaks nobody fixed. The complaints nobody took seriously, until the moment it was far too late to matter. Somewhere right now, there's probably a warning sign being quietly ignored in a building, a relationship, a decision someone keeps postponing because addressing it feels like too much trouble today. Boston learned in the most devastating way imaginable that disasters rarely begin with the explosion. They begin months earlier with the sound nobody stopped to listen to.